Hello, gorgeous soul. Welcome to Susie's Enchanted Crossroads. I'm Susie, and this podcast helps you navigate your journey through the crossroads by taking a deeper look into witchcraft and spirituality. So settle in, grab your beverage of choice, and let's get this episode going. Hello, gorgeous souls. I have a very special guest with me today. I'm so excited to introduce you to them. She is a modern witch with a deep passion for nature, spirits, and old magic. She has been drawn to the energy of crystals and all things living in nature for as long as she can remember, and she weaves that into her crafts, business, and lifestyles. Part of her dharma and expression is creating talismans and being a channel for the powers of the earth. I present to you Miss Josephine. Hi, Josephine.
Hi, Susie.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I met Josephine through a program. We have the same mentor, Sarah, which you had heard in the podcast a few episodes before when we were talking about Soul Sisters. So if you haven't heard that episode, I invite you to go back and take a listen. But Josephine, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're located, and what you do.
Hi everyone. My name is Josephine. I'm located in the south of Sweden. I'm born and raised here. Have traveled and lived in many parts of the world, but I'm back in Sweden, and here I'm building my business, which is focused on spirituality, talismans, magic, but also health and wellness. I also work with animals, with dogs, and yeah, I'm living my life trying to evolve into the best person I can be. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be here with you, Susie, and in the circle of friends that we have built together in our community. So yeah, it's a blessing.
Yeah. I love just all of, and I'm going to drop all of Josephine's information and I'll have that at the end of the podcast. But Josephine is so talented. And just going on her Instagram pages and looking what she's about, even like her fitness, her health, taking care of the body and what she's into, and then seeing, just the beauty. I live in the desert, so anytime I see anything green, I'm like, oh, that just looks so beautiful. Anytime I see your videos, and when you're with the dogs and all that, so it almost puts me like at ease, like when I see your videos and when you're posting. So that I super duper love. I actually do have a wonderful piece that I'll have available on my Instagram and my TikTok of this beautiful talisman that Josephine created for me. And we're going to get into that. So, what we're actually talking about today is amulets and talismans. So, talismans are magically infused with energy, usually used to repel other energies and influences like banishing, being protective. It's almost thinking like an amulet, like a charm infused with energy, so that it really uh, allows you to let go or release or repel any negative energies, evil eye, stuff like that. The talismans, and Josephine's really going to get into this, but are used can be used to draw and attract, increase or enhance energies, and influences. So, and I know they can be interchangeable. I just lost all my questions. Here we are. But what are the key characteristics, Josephine, that distinguishes a talisman from an amulet?
Yeah, I would say like a talisman, like it's a magical object with the intention to bring positive energies or outcome. But if you compare to amulets, it's more like the symbolism itself of the object that is the power. So I would say that like I can have amulets in my talisman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they are connected, but they're separated by the fact like the talisman is really built with the intention, while the amulet rather is like a protection symbol or sigil that you can carry with you.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
So, how have talismans and amulets, well, let me go back. Can you give examples of specific intentions or goals for which talismans and amulets are typically used, or maybe what your clients go to you to create for?
Yeah, so I work more with the talismans than I do personally with the amulets. And usually it's like to draw in like the positive energies, love, or like connect back to your femininity or with your dark feminine sides. So
Mm.
it's more like how should I summarize it? You can build a talisman so much complex, and it's usually quite personal. Like I have never made the same talisman twice because it
Wow.
depends on the energies of the crystals that I use and the feathers and like how it all comes together. So especially when I create the talisman like for a specific person, like I can draw in what energies they need, and kind of create from that.
That's so
Um, and
beautiful.
and yeah, I love the process. And amulets, I've created a few, but it's more like carving in runes for something, yeah, to take with you,
Hmm.
I'd say.
And when my talisman came in the mail, I was just in awe. Like I actually have it hanging right here. It is so gorgeous. Even if I were to describe it, it I wouldn't do it justice. I feel like even the pictures don't even do it justice because for me, like like you said, you're creating everything. You're harnessing the energy. You're putting so much of your thought and your energy and the knowledge that you have into your work and into each of these pieces. And now, like, how have talismans or amulets or both, how have they been used historically across different cultures and traditions?
Yeah, so it's one of the most ancient practices, I'd say, that we can find back into the beginning times. We find traces of small figurines um, that are carved or wristed. So I'd say it exists in all cultures since the beginning of time. Since I'm in the north, I'm a little bit more connected to the Celtic kind of pagan version of it. But I think it's been an element in humanity since we became Homo sapiens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to learn about the different cultures and the history, how rich it is in what has survived, obviously, throughout the years of colonization and really pushing through, because even as we look at crystals, right? And what their meaning is and the energy they put it like put out and what you can absorb with that energy, I feel is very this is much the same with obviously the amulets because I can pick up my I don't know what I have around here, my black onyx, and this is what I my protection for the day. And same thing with these precious metals and the way that you really move these metals into these works of art. So mine is actually the Lilith moon. So it is the moon, and I couldn't help but like just constantly stare at it. And I wanted to wait for the episode, but how long does it typically take you to make? I know you do different sizes, different ones, but from start to finish, how long does it take you to create these talismans?
Yeah, so it definitely varies. But a talisman of your size, like usually I don't make them in one go. But
Hmm.
I'd say at least a couple of hours. If I were to sit from beginning to end, maybe 3, 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because there's of course there's the practical aspect of like making the shapes and weaving the feathers, but there's also like a huge part of it is me intuitively like connecting the different pieces and like picking the stones and feeling if they're harmonizing or not. So
Mm.
some I know by experience, but usually like it's a process of like really feeling into um how it works together for this particular piece. So yeah,
Yeah,
3, 4 hours, I'd say at least.
at least because I was like, I know this took you days because of the way that you're working with the energies and harnessing the energy of like your clients. So I wanted to ask, how did you I don't know if there's any notable historical examples of talismans or amulets that you find particularly interesting or significant. And how did you get into this line of work?
Yeah, so one talisman that is ancient that has spoken to me since the beginning of time, it's the image of the old mother with the
Mm.
spiral, like a circle of life in the womb space, because that
Mm-hmm.
one, like, they have found pieces of that are, uh, yeah, like I can't name the number of years, but hundreds and hundreds of thousand years old. And it's such a beautiful piece of representing the female energy and like the nurturing energy that we all need to thrive. And especially like if you have a womb, it's such an important piece to connect with, to like feel the essence of femininity, I think. So I think that's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, like when I started doing this, I just kind of started, because like I have been collecting rocks since I could walk. Like I've always been drawn
Same.
to them,
Hmm.
and like being creative. But it started like with me making talismans when my sister had her first baby. So that was the
Oh,
first talisman that I made. So yeah, it
nice.
just kind of happened. Like I had the thread at home, and I just started building with what I had, and then yeah, I've been taking it from there.
That's so beautiful. And it's, I actually have, is it this one? Let me see. My cloth. Is this the one like you're talking about? Let me see if I can, because I know y'all can't see us, but you can hear us. Kind of like this. Oh, can I show it? Can I show it? Oh,
Let's see if it's
sort
in
of.
focus.
Uh,
Yeah, kind of. I saw the spiral. Yeah, I see the
mhm.
mother. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the one.
And my sister actually gifted this to me. This is the cloth that I use when I do readings. But it's that creation, right? And a lot of, I know the common misconception, especially when I'm reading tarot and we get like the Empress, and she's pregnant, and everyone freaks out like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be pregnant. And I was like, but it's not pregnant in such a literal sense. It's that you are creating whatever it is that you're about to create or to manifest, but it's also to understand, like, you, just as you are, if you're physically with child, that you are taking care of yourself, right? And same thing when you are creating, for yourself, you're creating these talismans. When I am creating my business with oils or whatnot, and I really resonate with you as I've always been attracted to rocks. I have always picked up whatever rock I see on the ground, it's like this one, and it always went in a tin. Um, and so I guess I've always been a crystal girly, right? So into rocks, but it's just that we're drawn to that energy, right? Or we feel we need um a sense of protection. I mean, we're both out here, right? We're in the ethers, everyone's listening to this episode, but also if you're on social media, a lot of people watching, taking interest in what you're doing, even they don't have maybe the best intentions. But coming back to just the talismans and the amulets, and maybe anything else you want to share. But what are some common misconceptions that people would have about a talisman or an amulet or both?
Well, I think the most common ones are either fear or ignorance.
Mm,
Um, Either like people literally being scared of magic, which I think is such a shame because it's such a natural part of us. Like once you open up to the limitless possibilities in the universe, like you realize like everything is magic.
mm-hmm.
And the same goes for the talismans. Like there's such an inherent power in just the crystals and the things itself. So once they're put together, it becomes a thing of its own. So I think that's one of the things that people fear them instead of like taking an interest and learning more, for example, about the specific runes and the deep history that it has. Um, and with the ignorance, I think there's so much disconnect in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're disconnected from yourself, it's not easy to see the value or the potential value that are inherent to other things if you're lacking in that for itself. So I think that could be a general answer for all things, but I think it's also true for amulets and talismans.
I think a lot also has to do with that. Obviously, people fear what we don't know, right? If we don't know, we're scared of it,
Mm-hmm.
or we've been told like it's evil. Um, and this will be an episode all within itself, but really that religious trauma that you can't believe in any such things. Because I obviously love and adore my talisman that you created for me, and I have it hanging up, no issue. But if someone were to see it and have a comment, but then in the background you got, the cross hanging over your doorway, what
Mm-hmm.
honestly is the difference, right? Except that you
Mm-hmm.
think mine is evil, or you may quote something straight from the Bible, but that's the thing, is that you're only like, and obviously this is not everyone. I grew up very Catholic, but there's only excerpts taken right from the Bible that they spit out right away without further reading, without further doing their own research, because a lot of what we're taught was to fear it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like I had an episode with Sarah and Elena about, sisterhood and healing the sister wound, because at time we were taught, that, this is a man's world, which it is. But like, instead of coming together as women, because we can be so strong and powerful, a lot of times it's to break us apart. And that's just the patriarchy. That's, what was, passed on to us. But it wasn't that long ago that women, and I mean, if you're living in 2024, you can see everything that's happening, at least in the States, right? How women are losing their rights left and right, with our healthcare. It's very scary, but it wasn't so long ago that we didn't have the right to vote. We couldn't open our own bank account. We couldn't own our own home. So of course we had to be so, doing the cooking, the cleaning, the raising, because we had to depend on the man to basically survive and to live. And when we start breaking away from that, then we can really see that what we can actually create, and just literally look around us and see, like you said, the magic is all around us. And literally what I tell my podcast listeners is that you are the magic. As you come into your craft, it's your craft. As long as you know you're not harming yourself or others, and you're being intentional and doing the research, I think it's, why not at least look into it? Have a, you can
Mm-hmm.
be a skeptic, but be curious about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with that, I would love to know, and you don't have to tell us everything that you do. I'm sure you could go in depth with it, but what is your creative process as you are creating this talisman? And I know you don't really work with the amulets, but you do incorporate them with the talisman. Is there a different creative process maybe when putting them together? Because and you can even get into the materials and the symbols. I actually, and this is why I love Josephine so much. This is why I love like small business, because when I opened my beautiful box and everything was so, you can tell everything was packaged with such love and care, because it was traveling a long ways, right? It was traveling like a lot of miles. And I opened it up, and I have like beautiful, like handwritten, you guys. And a lot of times we don't really see that out there, but handwritten note with like everything that was on my talisman, what it represented. So I already know this took some time because this is to me, this is energy that I cherish. When I see like a handwritten note or a postcard, even just like thank you for support, I'm like, this was like you put in the time in this. Not if you type it that there's no love in it. But this is literally like pages of intentional writing, and you put little stars and moons on here. And before I go on and on and on about how amazing you are, it just got me thinking about like, okay, because I'm gonna totally call myself out. So a necklace that I'm wearing right now, it I did not do this. I wish I could, but I tried very hard to learn how to wire loose crystal so I can wear it on a necklace. And Josephine, I totally sucked at it. Like I get the stone to sit in this fucking wire, dude. And it was a girls' night. It wasn't a girls' night thing. It was a few girlfriends and I were like, let's do this. Like, let's try to like make like our loose crystals so we can wear it. And we're like, yeah, I don't know where we went to buy like the wire. And when I opened up this beautiful box and see this amazing like work with the wire, I'm like, I can't even do this with the crystal and necklace. So I would love to know your process in creating these things.
Oh yeah, well, there has been a lot of trial and error. I'll tell you, I sucked at my first necklace too, and probably the first 10 or 20. Uh, so there's always a learning curve, no matter what you do. Um, but now I have more experience with it. So like when I'm creating a specific piece, um, like first of all, I like to clean space, like uncluttered, cleanse it with whatever like Palo Santo or smoke that I like. So like my area is clean, and then it's like I tune in to like what does this person need? Like what would this like um what yeah, what does this person need? And it's from there like I call in the shapes or the specific materials. So usually like I build them kind of in my mind first when it's a custom order and I have a free creative space to make it as I like a big part of it is like literally like tuning into their energy and what source wants to create for them. um and then it goes to building. So I make the shapes, I dress it with the crystals, and then I start to pull in like the animal amulets and the symbols after that. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And then after that, I pull in the feathers and kind of tune into how they're supposed to be to harmonize it. And I have the central, like there's usually like 1, 2, 4 central crystals that are gonna align. So I usually do that before I dress it with feathers to have it like centered. Um, so building, I love building them. Like I
Mhm.
love the process because it has to bring me to such a centered and present state where I forget everything else and like become the channel. Um, so and once the talisman is done, like I always cleanse it. Like I always cleanse it. So there's not any other energies lingering or transferred that I do not want to have there. Um, and yeah, and then it's from there that I write the recipe. Like I call them talisman recipes,
Mm.
to like where you have like each crystal or what it represents and the general intention of the talisman. um so and I think that improves or raises, so it raises the value of the talisman to the receiver because not all of them are as deep into crystals as I am at this stage.
Mhm.
So I think it's good to share the knowledge of what it is. And I have to write it when I have the talisman because I have realized like once I hand it over, I lose the connection. Like once I
Mm.
hand it over, I lose the connection to the talisman. So I cannot go that deep into what it is. once it has left my space. So yeah, I think that's generally how I do it, and then I try to pack it up and deliver it.
That is so interesting. Because you have that deep connection because you're channeled in and then to write. And I'm looking, I was like, wow, this is really in depth because obviously, so when Josephine was like, what kind of talisman do you want? And honestly, I just felt called like whatever spirit guides you, like whatever I may be needing, or maybe I need a boost in. Um, we pretty much know each other. Whatever you feel called to. And sometimes I do love that when I get that with like my tarot readings, and it's like what do I need to hear today? And it's like something probably off the wall, and it's like, oh shit, I didn't know I needed that message, right? It's like, okay, cool. I guess I need to focus here today. But in reading and and it was almost I was almost like entranced in it. So, I took it out, I hung it up, and at first it stayed in my kitchen because I felt like I just wanted to like constant, and I knew it was going to come into my space, into my room, right? Um, but just looking at it and then reading it was like you in my ear, like telling me like almost like this is what it is. Um, Almost like when someone shows you like an open house kind of thing, just describing each piece, what the feather represent. On mine, I have a serpent, and I love how you put in here that sometimes people, it just depending, right? When you see a snake or have been told about it, you feel a certain way, like, oh, it's danger, or oh, this is a time for transformation. And that's where mine was. It's like renewal, change, shedding of old skin or old versions of you that you have outgrown. And I was like, you know what? I do feel that sense coming through, especially with my business, right? It's an ebb and flow. I think we all shed our skin as we grow. In any, you don't even need to be spiritual or witch or identify as such. I think as we grow, um, I guess if you're fighting, shedding that skin, yeah, it could be a little bit uncomfortable or tumultuous or like the tower card. But just realizing like sometimes, we outgrow our friends or whatnot. But just really going through your talisman and seeing, even like as you said, you like to put the amulets on the talisman because it amplifies it. And I think that's so beautiful how you do that. So you said that you already cleanse it. Is there anything that the recipients need to do as far as charging or activating these talisman to imbue it with its intended power? Um, Even I know that you normally do talisman. Would it be the same with the amulets, or are they just ready to go?
I'd say they're ready to go, but there's a lot of potential to tune into the energies of the talisman. So I'd say like to yeah, take your time with it to get familiar of its presence and feel into it. I'd like to recommend like to meditate with it and like to tune into it. But otherwise, I think it's just a matter of like maybe cleansing it once in a while, depending on what rocks and whatnot is in there. But otherwise, I'd say it's good to go and to tune into how you're gonna locate it into your home and
Yeah.
your space.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I really didn't feel, sometimes when things come in, you feel like, oh man, it's been touched by, all these people. I need to, bring it in it and cleanse it and charge it and do all the things. Like I would with like runes or tarot deck. But when I received the piece, I was like, oh, like I just you could feel the energy of it. And I was like, I'm gonna sit with this. And I felt the need to like touch every feather, like really connect with it. It was such a beautiful process just taking it out of the box and then almost like a completely different process of like hanging it up and even moving it into a different room, into a different space. I feel like that energy really comes out of this talisman. Like I really feel it around me. And that's why I wanted to talk about like, obviously these have been around for hundreds of years, as we said at the beginning of the episode. But now as we are in modern day, um, witchcraft is all the rage. It's getting a lot of traction. It's on TikTok. We have, it's all over the place now, which is great in some aspects, right? Because we don't have to be fearful of these things. But as far as like your pieces, or even in general, how do you see the use and understanding of talismans and amulets evolving in modern spiritual spaces or practices?
Mm, well, I think it's always been there, and I think it's always going to be around. But what I really would like to see is the devotees, as they're who are drawn to it, really taking the time to dive into the history, because I think there's so much knowledge that has been lost and polluted and distorted,
Mhm.
and destroyed. So like a quick Google doesn't really tell the tale. I think there's so much that we need to go deeper into to really draw into like the ancient old magic that are inherent to all things. So that's what I would like to see, and I think it's going to be around forever as it's a part of the universe.
Yeah, yeah. And just tapping into that, you know what I mean? And I know it's so easy. The thing that we have like all this information literally at our fingertips, like we have a computer on our phones, but just taking a deeper dive, like how did you, I guess, dive deeper into your, I guess, talisman journey? Like, were you reading books? Were you taking any classes? Are there websites or people that you would vouch for if someone were listening right now so they can dive deeper into? Because sometimes all we know is Google. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a lot we can find through Google, but it's a
Hmm.
matter of filtrating through the top results. So I'd say a good start is to widen your reach into different cultures, and go deeper in there, because like I am self-taught in all things I've known, and I've read from books and on the internet, and learned from other people, but it's also been really interesting to find like old descriptions of crystals from like the Mexican culture, and
Hmm.
finding like what they knew, and taking more information, more than what's available in the algorithm in my local area. Um, but I don't know if I have any specific reference for books or such. I think it's a lot of following your intuition and your calling, that leads you on.
Yeah. Another thing I would
Yeah.
even have my listeners out there maybe perhaps do is looking into your culture and maybe just I don't know throwing a dart at a map and like really going into wherever it lands on the land, what grows on that land, what happened on that land, the natives that were on that land, so that way you can really get a feel for um what they were celebrating and what like you had said like you had gotten into talismans because it was a birth of a child, right, coming into the world. And a lot of times, we're celebrating this birth, and then maybe what do they do when they're celebrating a death? Because I know nowadays we're taught to fear death, and even though it's part of the process, and we're sad, but every culture, religion has its own way of celebrating life, when they're being born, or celebrating their life as they leave and go on to whatever you believe in, right? Wherever that soul happens to go. So, um, as far as my listeners out there, if you're really into wanting to to learn more about a talisman or an amulet because I think we're just free given, right, Josephine, this information and all of these videos, right? And all of a sudden it's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, I'm wearing crystal bracelets, but then it's like, oh, okay, like I'm wearing like an evil eye ring, and we just like automatically just put it on and go about our day without really knowing like where it's coming from. Why is
Mhm.
it that? Some
Yeah.
cultures say evil eye, others, call it the Nazar. And why is that different? And how do you go back? It's just like taking that one thing and like working your way
Yeah.
backwards. Um,
Yeah, and
so
I'd like
yeah,
to
go
add
ahead.
to that if I
Yeah.
may. Yeah. So the symbols as well as such in our amulets is that there have been so many different interpretations over time.
Hmm.
So there is so many aspects of it depending on where you're reaching it. And another thought that occurred to me when you ask how to learn more about talismans, as I do for mine, using feathers or different um, animals like the serpent in yours, is to study the nature and study the animals to see their properties, like what are their
Hmm.
strengths, and like what are their specific process in hunt or gathering or like through life and death, and because I think that's a huge part of it as well. So I wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, case in point, right? Because there's different, like for mine personally, it's a serpent, but how does a serpent move throughout nature? What is the history of the serpent? What is the history of, the feathers that you use and their characteristics and what they bring in the talisman? Thank you so much for that. How should talismans, because obviously mine is to be hung, but and I won't say, but I'll allow you to. You had told me in my letter, where it could be placed, but how could they be either placed or worn, I guess, to have to be the most effective? I know that you create different ones, so if you want to pick this certain type of talisman should or can be hung, or this amulet can be worn XYZ
Mhm.
place.
Yeah, so I think the talismans that I make are for jewelry. There's like usually relates to the energy of the crystal, like to pick the specific occasion. Like if it's
Mhm.
for a test to bring your
Mm,
citrine, like for the focus, or if you're going through a transformative time, like to wear the labradorite. And when you're gonna have a talisman in your home or in your workspace, I'd say the most important thing is like to keep it like somewhere where you're rested or where you're working in peace, like
mm,
where it's not polluted by a bunch of other people. Like
hmm.
I wouldn't put it in the lunchroom. I would keep it in my private corner. And if there's a space where you meditate or are creative yourself, I think that's one of the best places. Because that's when you're more um, perceptive, like
Hmm.
you can perceive the energies more when you're in a relaxed and calm state. So, and then I think it's also a huge part of it is using your intuition, like to feel where is the right space for you.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, when I took it out, I was like, I want to see this all the time because I was doing some construction here in my room. But then I was like, okay, I felt it. I was like, it's time to move. It's time to move her and just put her in my space. My space isn't really ready, so to speak, but like having it here, I could just feel okay, it's coming. I'm getting ready for, this transformative energy for at least my tamulet, my talisman, to just to feel that energy in the space as I'm working, as I'm podcasting, as I'm creating, as I'm, throwing cards, as I meditate. And you can really feel that energy throughout. Same thing if you had an amulet with you, you know what I mean? Like I love how you said when you're taking a test, you have your charm or your crystal because it helps you to focus and you can just feel that energy coming from the item and then into your energy and how you really absorb all of that, which is such a beautiful connection with all of these things. Well, now that I have my talisman, and maybe someone has purchased a talisman from you or an amulet, how should one care for it and maintain it? Are there any particular rituals or practices involved? I had gotten questions like, oh, like, do I need to charge it under the full moon? Like, how does that work? So I wanted to wait. That way I can ask this on the episode. Are there any specific rituals that we need to do or any practices to care for and maintain our talismans?
I'd say I'd like to keep it really simple. I like to cleanse mine with smoke when I feel it. Um, and yeah, like I would keep it from being dusty or rusty, like from humidity or wet.
Mhm.
Like I would try to keep it dry and safe. But otherwise, I usually just like cleanse it with smoke. And yeah, then make sure to cook with it once in a while. I think I think that would be sufficient.
Yeah, I do want to preface out there because I always say it, like not everything has to be this huge, big, elaborate ritual. It really doesn't. Especially when someone is creating, or maybe you out there, you're creating your amulet or your talisman, that's the energy that's being put into it, right? Josephine put like her energy into this, using my energy, harnessing it and creating it. And it's just really upkeeping it. You don't want it to, like you said, get dusty, rusty, making sure that, and obviously making sure that you're connecting with it. Because if all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't feel the energy anymore, when was the last time you connected with that energy? It's just like, you don't like that one person that only calls you when you need something, you know what I mean? Like you want to go back and forth with this energy and meditate or even just acknowledge it like, hey, looking so gorgeous right there, hanging up on my wall there. You know what I mean? Or holding on to it, or just saying thank you when something transformative happens, or you feel like you were protected, or whichever is the meaning with that talisman or amulet. But almost being grateful for like the energies to help to help you and to guide you. Is there anything else you want to let our listeners know about learning or anything about talismans and the work that you put into it?
Mm, I'd say if you're interested, give it a go. Have fun. Like play with it. And I think as you gave a go with your crystals, I think that's a great start. Like like have fun. Like have fun. Like have fun with your crystals and like yeah, enjoy the process. That's what I would say. Like don't be afraid to practice your own magic. Yeah.
Oh, Josephine, it was a hot mess. The thing with me is, and I know I have to be better, is that I was like, if I'm not good at it, I'm done. Like, I have got to be good at it. And I just could not. And my friends were like, no, it looks good. I was like, this fucking thing keeps popping out. Like, the whole point is for it to sit so that way I don't lose it. You know what I mean? I was like, and this is why I'm going to purchase these things from other people because I was watching videos, I was on YouTube, I was on Instagram, I was on TikTok, like, and people are like, yeah, you just hold it and you wrap it and you and ta-da, freaking sun with the crystal in the middle. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go that crazy. And I could
Yeah.
not, Josephine, I wish, and I did take a video, but I was like, here's my hot mess. So just wires just sprayed out. And then my friend was like, hers looked so amazing. Hers was good. She's like, well, look at mine. It's not perfect. I was like, dude, at least the wire's cradling the crystal. Mine is just a hot mess. I don't even know what to do. And I tried different like gauges of the wire, was not working. So
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, you can have these wire spools now. And she's like, no, keep trying. I was like, no, no. Not now. I'm too like frustrated with it. But so when I see yours and
Yeah.
I'm looking at this Lilith moon, it is so freaking gorgeous. I'm just like, wow, I couldn't even wrap a crystal. But like you said, it takes time, like
Yeah.
anything, it takes
Patience.
time, patience, especially if
Yeah.
you feel like it's your calling. Okay, y'all, do as I say, not as I do. Don't give up like I did. If I go back
You
to
know
it.
what? If I come to the States, like, we can have a private course. We can have a
Okay, you know what?
craftsman time. Yeah.
De- Deal. I will book you because it just looks so interesting. But honestly, when I don't know, I thought it would be like a cool meditative thing, to have fun. And I know for like you said, you get into the trance and you're getting into it. But I don't know if you've done this before, but if you actually just do like a live with you actually doing it, I can just watch those videos for hours on end just to see people creating. Like to me, that puts me into the meditative space where it's like, wow, just look at her go, whether it's like creating a talisman, wire wrapping a crystal, someone knitting. Like I'm so in awe of how creative people can be, and they just do it. So all of you out there, I don't want to sound like Nike, but just do it, just just get out there. I know if you hadn't listened to my episodes prior, don't wait for the perfect day. It's not going to happen. Just pick up and do it. Like if you're thinking about grabbing that oracle deck, just grab it. Like just read that book. Just grab some wire or whatnot. And at the end of the day, at least you tried it, at least working with your hands at some point, doing something for you, even if it's uncomfortable. I will probably always purchase a talisman, um, uh, because it's so intricate and beautiful, and I can really appreciate the artwork going into it and the hard work. But for everybody else, like, don't give up. Just try it and do it and see what happens. Even if it's a hot mess, it's your hot mess. That's how I looked at it. It's ugly, but at least it's my ugly thing. Um,
Yeah, we all
okay,
start somewhere.
that's true. We all do have to start. Like I didn't pick up, and some for some people, it's just like you were meant to do it. Like you were just
Yeah.
meant to do this. So you never know. This key might just be the right fit, and you unlock that door. Okay, Josephine, as we're starting to wrap up, you want to tell us like where we can find you, if you have anything exciting coming up, or if we can purchase from you, and anything exciting that you would like to share with our audience.
Um, yeah, well, I might as well throw in a shameless plug for my social
Mm.
media where
Oh,
it's
girl,
the
plug it.
easiest place to find me
Mhm.
and my work. So my business for the talisman is called Josefine, well, Josefine Enrique
Mhm.
Design. Um, and maybe we can write that out in the
Yeah.
text for the podcast, and
Hmm.
I don't have to spell it out. And my Instagram for the talismans is solely constant. So SOULYCONZTN uh, SETI constant.
Yeah. We'll
So
have everything
yeah,
linked.
yeah, the links are better. So yeah, that's where you find me, and I have my health practices as well. But yeah, we can just throw that in there. It's all under Josefine Enrique. So
Yeah.
I think that's this place.
Did you want to tell our listeners about a little bit about your health practice before I let you go?
Um, I don't think we have to dive into it too much. I think it relates to like the spiritual practice of
Hmm.
like keeping your vessel clean, consuming high frequency food.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that ties into magic in all areas. But
of
yeah, I
course.
think that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it. So just kind of grounding ourselves because sometimes, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I don't eat the best. But yeah, you can find Josephine, and we're gonna link all of her stuff down in the show notes. So if you just scroll down a little bit, you can find all her links to her social media and everything that she's up to, as well as her talismans. So okay, everyone. Like always, if you have any questions or you have ideas for a topic, also in the show notes, you'll see a link. You can click on that and a form will pop up. So This is how I get your input, and I find amazing people like Josephine, if I don't know too much about it, to discuss in depth with whatever it is that you would love to learn more or hear about. Also, if you can like, share, and review this podcast, that way it gets pushed out a little bit farther, and people from all over the world can have a listen and start maybe taking their dive into spirituality and witchcraft. All right, everyone. Until then, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Josephine, for being on, and I will
Thank you
see you
so
at the
much for having me.
crossroads.